welcome to the Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls Fire Wizard Guide. In this guide I'm going to be covering some of the coolest features of playing this spec in Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls. The Fire Wizard, as I like to call it, is an amazing spec that does an absolute ton of damage. Now, there are a couple of variations that can actually increase your survivability for this build, and I'll actually go into those in just a minute. But let's get right into it, okay? So the first thing that we really want to know is what gear do we need? Because remember, in Reaper of Souls, everything's extremely gear dependent. And your gear can actually dictate your spec. So in order to really play this spec, the things that you're really looking for, the number one thing is the Smoldering Core staff. Now, the reason that you want this staff is it has an affix that actually draws lesser enemies into your meteor impact, okay? And this is incredibly essential, especially for farming, as what it's going to do is it's going to make those mobs attracted to where your meteors are about to land. So this is extremely important to make sure that you're doing a ton of damage, and you will. This spec does an insane amount of damage. The survivability is a little low, but we'll get into that in a minute. So going forward, what do we really need to know? The staff is important. Any fire damage gear or any gear that has meteor damage is going to be really good. Also, there's a set of shoulders that you can get which will actually give you resources back based on health globes, so that's not a bad one to get either. So keep that in mind as well, that if you can get a hold of those shoulder pieces, that makes this spec very nice as well. So let's get into the spec itself. What spells are we taking? Well, our primary, we use Spectral Blade with Flame Blade. Now, again, for more survivability, you will do less damage, but for more survivability, you can take the Barrier Blade, so it gives yourself a shield. I have seen that done. However, for just pure huge damage, you're really going to want that Spectral Blade with Flame Blades, because it really ups the damage that you're doing, the fire damage that you're doing to these enemies for your stacks of Spectral Blades, which actually stack for every enemy you hit. So when you get in that big mob, you can press it once, get up to 6, 7, 8 stacks, and then slam out your meteors, and you will do incredible damage. That being said, your secondary is going to be your meteors. That's really going to be your big damage boost in this spec, is your meteor damage, okay? This is what we're going to be spamming for most of our farming, is the meteors. And again, for this we want Meteor Shower because it does fire damage and it splits it up into smaller meteors. Now, these smaller meteors actually do an insane amount of damage per meteor. You'll see in this video they're hitting anywhere from 7 to 10 million crits, which is insane, especially because there's 7 of them. 5 to 7 of them hitting the ground at a time. So that's just an insane amount of damage coming out. And then, let's see, the other main spell that you're going to have is, you have 2 choices here. I like Black Hole with Fire Blade, with Blazer, because what this does is it explodes and then it does a ton of damage as fire damage to everything that it explodes onto, making it an extremely good dot spell, as well as it groups everything up so that you can just shower meteors on it, get your Spectral Blade buff up, and then just everything just dies. It just falls over. There's nothing you can't kill in this spec. Other than that, let's see, what else do we really want to take? I like Teleport just because of the mobility. I think Teleport with Wormhole is one of the best farming talents that there is for speed of farming and getting from A to B as quickly as possible. I always take that. I also always take Archon. The reason I take Archon is because whenever you're doing Torment farming, when you get into that situation where you're like, oh crap, or you get to a big boss or a elite mob, or you accidentally pull more than you should, it's kind of your oh crap button, because you can literally just destroy everything in it. I do use improved Archon. Some will tell you that Wormhole is just better, or having the Teleport is just better. I do tend to agree with that, but for just pure damage purposes, again, improved Archon is going to net you the most damage, okay? Especially in large farm groups, getting that stack nice and high and then just pummeling into the Rift boss, or pummeling into, the end boss of the act, or whatever it is that you're farming, seems to really make it a lot easier and a lot smoother. So that's why I take Archon with improved Archon for this. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, okay? So what other spell are you using? What passive damage bonus are you using? And this is where you have a couple of choices, okay? Your two main choices are going to be Storm Armor with Power of the Storm, and what that's going to do is actually reduce the resource cost, which means you can spam more meteors equals more damage, right? Right. Okay, the other one that I like is Familiar with Spark Flint. Now this gives you more damage and more fire damage, and this all, again, for pure damage purposes, I like Spark Flint. With Familiar. I think that's just overall, if you want the most damage, the most fire damage out of this spec, you're going to see that, and you're going to net the most DPS using that. So that's why I would recommend taking that. So how the spec's really going to work, just a quick overview, is you're going to use your black hole, suck everything in with that blazer, Spectral Blade once or twice to get your buffs really high, slam out as many meteors as you humanly can until you run out of resources, and then watch everything die. There's really no mob that's going to withstand that unless they're an elite or a rare, and even then, about 2 rounds of that and you're good. Now, like I said, the reason that this all works so well is, let's look at some of the passives that we're taking, okay? Dominance being the most important here. The reason we want dominance is because we're trying to group up large amounts of mobs, okay? And we want to kill them before they kill us. So those meteors need to come out, you need to get that buff going, keep that 10 stack up, because that's going to be your main survivability. Now the other thing that's really, really important here is that you have 2 options here. You can use Unwavering Will and Audacity, or Unwavering Will or Audacity. If you look at how both of them work, they're both really nice. The way that this spec works, I actually use both, and then Conflagrate being the most important of all, because this does all the damage and adds ticking damage as fire damage as well from all your abilities. So this is actually the bread and butter. This is what kind of glues all of your abilities together, is that Conflagrate. So important for the spec, especially if you're kiting. You'll just see monster numbers keep ticking on the enemies that you hit. It's almost like a bleed effect. It's that dot over time. And it allows us to really kind of get out of harm's way, allow them to drop health, and then reset everything, group them all up, destroy them again, especially if we're getting low or if we're trying to farm those higher Torment levels. Obviously in the video behind me that you see, it's just Torment level 1, but I have 0 problems with pretty much anything, and that's really what you're going for, is you just want to be able to slam stuff down. Now, again, if you notice that the way that you're farming, you're just like, man, I just want a little bit more survivability, go ahead and grab Blur, because Blur you can substitute for Unwavering Will or Audacity. It's really up to you. I would probably sub Audacity, just because you do get a passive damage reduction when you're standing still with Unwavering Will. So I would probably switch out Audacity for for that. If you want to do just be more tanky, that's fine. That is totally fine, especially because the damage that you're putting out should be relatively high enough to where you can farm no problem. So it's really all about just making sure that you're not dying. You don't really have to pay attention to anything. You're just literally just standing there mindlessly farming. I like to see a little bit bigger numbers and really have to try to maneuver a little bit. It just makes the game more fun for me, but it's really up to you. As far as Paragon points, the biggest thing is obviously you want to make sure you're at max movement speed, including in your gear. So take a look what that means for you. Maximum mana, also important, because remember, the more meteors you can do, the better. Crit hit damage, crit hit chance, also very nice to have. And then I actually like resist all, or life on hit are also very, very nice with this spec. And you will notice that the life on hit tends to really, really shine with this meteor spec, because as long as you're got everything up, you're just, especially with dominance, you're going to see that your life really shouldn't have a problem with surviving. And that's really the biggest thing when we farm, is we don't want to have to be on the edge of our seat wondering if we can take that hit or not. It should just be, okay, well, no problem, I've got this up, I've got this, we're good. And that's really how the spec works, guys. So go ahead and take a look at the rest of this RIP video. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave your comments below. Leave any other tips or tricks that you see that maybe would make this spec even a little bit better. I'd be more than happy to take a look at them for you. And as always, see you in the next one.